Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Toby, and this is May's Morsels. Today, I'm going to be talking about a few things that I've gotten accomplished off of my to-do list for heading back to school. Today is the 7th day before I head back to work officially. So, come along, and I hope you enjoy this video. I've got some exciting stuff that I learned from some recent PD. So, it's just after 11 o'clock in the morning. I've already had a pretty full day. I got up at 5:30 this morning to work out, had to run one of my kids to work by 8, and then did a PD at 9 o'clock. So I am ready to kind of debrief and tell you next steps for this 7th day before I go back to work. All right. So here's my to-do list that I started a couple days ago. You can see it. I've got some things checked off. I've also added a bunch of things down here that I also had to take care of. So just to recap, yesterday was my lunch meeting with my sign language interpreters. I haven't seen them all summer, most of them all summer, and so it was great to catch up with them. Um, I also had a little bit of time in the morning while my daughter was completing some road hours for driving school. So I sat at Panera and watched part of a training on Canvas about Canvas, like setting up your Canvas page. I typically don't have an elaborate Canvas page because I don't have like a regular classroom, but I do at least like to have some things on Canvas. And so since I don't use it all the time, I often forget over the summer how to do Canvas. So it was nice. I started that little refresher course to get my brain back so I can get my Canvas page eventually created. That's kind of lower on my list of things to do since my students don't utilize Canvas that much in my room. Other little sporadic things I had to take care of is my work laptop battery is just not lasting very long, and I noticed it was only lasting about 40 to 45 minutes back in May. But this summer, or actually the past couple days when I've been using it, I would run into try to like I ran to work to try to print some documents off that I needed, and the battery saver went on after like 40 minutes. So I was like, okay, something's got to be up with the battery. So I had to put in um, a tech request ticket for that. So I'm still working through that. So I'm using my other laptop for work things. That's more like it's an older one that I use when I have a substitute in my room. Let's see. I got half of my schedule done. So today the rest of today, I will be trying to get the rest of my schedule done. And I can show you a little screenshot of that and what that looks like. And I'm using Planbook this year for my schedule. And so far, it's been a really good experience. It's really busy. There's a lot of colors. I might have to figure out how I'm gonna switch the colors so it's more visually easier to navigate and find things because I've got a lot of moving parts in my room. Um, so anyways, this morning though, I attended a training on classroom organization. So one of the things on my to-do list was to create a PD plan. So a couple days ago, I got on my district learning website and I was looking through all the PD that they offered, and they actually had a classroom organization PD for today, and it was 2 hours long. And I was like, score, because on my teacher rubric from last year, one area that I scored slightly lower in is my organization skills. And I really struggle, like I said before, with spatially organizing things. I struggle with where to put materials when I've got two groups going on at the same time. And just the flow of like my schedule has a lot of students in and out and overlapping times. So, like, how do I organize my materials, um, desks, tables? So I was just so excited that I actually got to join that training this morning. So I can, in an earlier video, I talked about how I used Google Slides to create a classroom layout. And so today for this training, we kind of had to do the same thing, but it was just paper and pencil. So I created this layout of my classroom and they kind of walked us through each step. Like, we're going to talk about this now, add this to your classroom layout. So it was really good, even though I know I've already done that in Google Slides, it was really good to go back on paper and kind of rethink where I might want to put things in light of the information that I learned. So the three like takeaway things to remember when you're organizing a classroom that I learned today, which I kind of knew, but now I can actually put words to it, is um, visibility, accessibility, and distractibility. So first with visibility. The teacher needs to be able to see the students at all times, whether the teacher is doing whole group instruction, small group instruction, the kids are in independent work time, if the kids are in a time away spot, or if the kids are in a calm down corner or a supportive space, not sure what you call that. The teacher needs to have eyes on the students at all times. And then, so that's the biggest takeaway for visibility, which I think for the most part, my classroom, I have eyes on every part of or every area of my classroom where students might be. The only exception might be my supportive space or my calm down corner because it's kind of tucked away in my cubbies where I wouldn't, um, I don't always see them. So um, I'm not sure if I really am going to change that because I feel like since I've had my students year after year and I've modeled how to act and what the expectations are for that corner, I really don't foresee any major issues. Um, and I do have a clear shot of the door, so I know if somebody's going to leave my classroom, I can intervene there. So I'm not sure. I think the only space that I don't have like direct visual access to the student in the space is my calm down corner or my supportive space. But again, I can clearly see the door, so I would know if anyone's going to exit the door. And then if they come out of that space, I can easily see where they're going, what they're doing, or how they're acting or responding. So, so visibility is the first one. The second one is accessibility. In my special ed brain, I was thinking like accessibility to um, things and materials and instruction. um, like, can the students see and hear what's going on in the classroom? Can they access the materials and books and resources that they need for their learning time? But another part that I didn't think of that I guess I do have it set up in my room this way, but I just didn't. Again, I'm putting words to things that I've done, but I haven't necessarily like intentionally thought of, I set up my room and this is why or how I set it up this way. But the second part of accessibility is that the teacher has the ability to move through the room quickly to address any issues, questions, or problems that might arise during instruction. Um, and so, yes, I have set up my room to where I can quickly get up behind my small group table and I don't have a lot of space clutter or floor clutter that would block me from getting to if I have a student having a sensory issue or a student who has lost focus in their independent time and is not working, um, or if a student has a question. So I feel like I have set my room up that's conducive for me to have accessibility to get to student problems, questions, whatever. But I just never thought of that being like an accessibility part of your classroom room layout. And then, of course, like making sure that students can easily navigate through the room, like as they come in the door, uh, can they easily navigate the room so that their workspace is accessible, the small group table is accessible for them, and materials, of course, are accessible for them. So we have visibility, accessibility, and the last one is distractibility. So as a teacher, we all know that while we're teaching, we are navigating little bodies in our room, and everything else in the room is competing for their attention. Other objects, other students, um, noises from the hallway, noises outside. Like when they mow the field outside my window, um, the lawnmower distracts students every single time. So I have the ability to like shut the blinds or whatever. Um, last year I hung up a bird feeder outside my window because we were talking about living things and non-living things, and that living things need to eat and stuff like that. And I quickly realized that I need to shut the blinds at certain times. And then the student, during their independent time, or if they finished early, they could request to go sit and look out the window and watch the birds. So the birds were competing with instruction. So just being aware of what objects or other students or noises or whatever might distract your students, and consider that as you're setting up your classroom. So, anyways, those are the three biggest takeaways. Of course, they went through like different classroom layouts. This presenter suggested starting with a U-shape classroom, and leaving out these corner um, desks so that number one, this student wouldn't be next to two students. And then also that would increase accessibility for teachers and students to walk through that corner area to get to other areas. Here's your traditional front of the room in rows. She stated that like this layout is very conducive for higher work productivity out of students because they can only see the head in front of them. And as long as they don't scooch their desks close together and those spaces between the row is maintained, that work productivity is better with less distraction. Um, then this layout with pods of like groups of 4 students is conducive for like collaborative learning. And like after you've done your beginning of year procedures, you might rearrange your room to more like a collaborative space with groups of 3 or 4 tables in a cluster or a group. And then this was just one way you could organize. This one's similar. These long rectangles are actually all individual desks, but I didn't want to draw that many desks. So this is similar to where you have a flow in the middle and then you have like wings on either side, and making sure that you have space to walk through here. The teacher has space, the students have space to maneuver through everything. Um, this one's more typical with like uh, like 3 or 4 students side by side together with the aisle down the middle. And then she gave us a ton of considerations to keep in mind for like where the teacher desk could be, um, if you have assigned seats or not, which she recommended for younger students that you should start with assigned seats, and maybe they can earn free choice seats or something. Consider where your outlets are. Like I don't ever think about where my outlets are until I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I don't have an outlet here, so I obviously cannot put my small group table here. Where are your trash cans, your pencil sharpeners? Making sure those things are on the perimeter of your classroom so that students are not disrupting instruction if they need to get up and throw something away, or if they need to get up and sharpen their pencil. Um, Making sure that paths are clear in your classroom between furniture and learning areas or centers, because that decreases transition time, decreases student off task talking time. The teacher can then easily walk the room, providing a space for students to line up, which I did. Like I have always had this space over here by my door where the students would line up for dismissal or before they transition back to their homeroom class. Um, but I'm considering, putting colorful little dots on the floor instead of just having them line up there. I think last year I had a piece of yellow tape and that's where the line started. So anyways, but I didn't think to put that on my classroom layout, like where are kids going to line up? And then to consider movable items such as desks, tables, trash cans, shelves. I didn't even think about my calming corner or my time away spot or my classroom library as a movable space, but it's definitely movable. So those are all areas that might need to be moved if something is not flowing right. Um, Anyways, she went over carpet arrangement. I don't have a carpet in my room, and I don't do a lot of up front of the board because I only have between 6 to 9 students in my classroom at any given time. And the small groups are usually, 2 to 4 at a time. So if we do need to come up closer to the board, like carpet time, I typically just use it as a movement break where they have to pick up their chairs and move their chairs to sit in front of the board. So I don't really have a carpet space. Um, Decorations, of course, less is best. I don't have a ton of decorations in my classroom. Um, she stressed that we need to display student materials and work and display academic materials as it comes up in the instruction and not just put all of the academic visual resources up at the beginning of the year and leave it all up there. Like change it out throughout the year. Um, I did ask a question about because, like I said, in my classroom, I have some overlapping small group time. So, like, if I have 2 math groups or 2 literacy groups going on at the same time, but in different parts of the classroom because it's 2 different levels or 2 different languages. If I've got one with my signing students in ASL receiving instruction versus my spoken English students, that needs to be 2 separate groups. I asked if I should have my materials at each learning area or in a central location between the 2 groups that students get access. Um, and she suggested having materials in both places behind the teacher so that the teacher can easily access the materials they need for that instruction, which I kind of already did. It's just a little tricky when I don't have enough like number lines or like some of my math manipulatives. I might need to be more strategic about how I divide those up or uh, my reading manipulatives like pointers and the little pom-pom dots and the laminated Alconin boxes and stuff like that. Um, so I just need to kind of revisit that. Um, she suggested your bulletin boards have a separate one for each content area. So like a math board, a literacy board. I also wrote down that I want to add a pre-vocational skills board, a social emotional learning board, and then I think I'm going to add a space on my bulletin board for my emergency procedures because we do like a little emergency procedures book at the beginning of each school year. But I really feel like some of my students who have a little higher anxiety during lockdowns or whatever, having that bulletin board with visual supports for what to do in each situation might actually help just kind of desensitize her to if something like that happens. Because she's really, a lot of deaf or hard of hearing kids do get anxious when the fire alarm goes off or they hear whatever sound goes over the speaker for an emergency and what to do because the sounds can be startling depending on how their cochlear implant, BAHA, or hearing aid receives that information or for the student who is deaf who doesn't use any hearing devices, she just sees that flashing light on the wall and it's like a startle response and instant into anxiety. So just maybe having the posters on the wall as far as what the emergency is and what to do in the event of that emergency might kind of visually kind of desensitize her so she knows like these things are going to happen, so this is what we do when it does happen. And hopefully that will help some of my students. Um, and then for the pre-vocational skills board, I've never done that before, but my students do have cards that some of them take to class with them that show pictures of a student struggling so that cues them to, hey, I'm having the same struggle. I need to raise my hand and ask for help. So I was like, wow, why don't I put those up in my classroom as another visual reminder of, hey, in here we can do these strategies. And when you leave your room and take your cards with you to your classroom, just as another visual reminder of how they can use their pre-vocational strategies when they struggle in the classroom. Let's see. She's stressed to make sure that your classroom decor informs instruction. It is not just visual clutter around your room. Um, and then making sure that your supportive space, my puppy dog right here, sorry. She's my little sidekick when I'm at home. Um, Make sure your supportive space is visible, safe, separate from the whole group, free of excess stuff, has only what the students need in that supportive space. Um, you have to model how to use that space, how to go to the space, how to use the timer, all that stuff. Let's see here. She did talk about the teacher space. Just make sure that your table is clear of materials. And I'll have to say that is my number one struggle. Number one. My teacher table is a hot mess to the point where students come in and they're like, "You need to clean your table, Miss Cowan." And I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do." So this year, I'm gonna have to figure out how to not have my table a mess because I need to model good organization in order for my students to then also have good organization. But right now, or as of last year, I was a very poor model. But this year, we're going to hopefully change that. So, furniture. Furniture, you should be able to see all your students over the furniture. And if the furniture is taller and blocks visibility, it's best to keep it on the perimeter of the room, which again, I think most of the time I think all of my furniture is on the outside wall. I don't think I have any furniture that is like in the middle of the room. So I think I'm good there. Flexible seating needs to be organized. And it was interesting to see other teachers' comments on how they use flexible seating. Right now, the only flexible seating I have is like a foam couch and a child-sized futon in my classroom library area. There is a soft beanbag for students to sit on if they go to the time away spot. And then there's a chair, some sort of chair in my supportive space or calm down area. And then I do have black stools that students can choose to work on, but they have to kind of earn those stools because what I've noticed is my kiddos who also might have issues with ADHD or sensory issues, they get on those stools and sometimes they just like bounce up and down. And I'm like, it's not a ball, but it's almost like because their little bottom is not enveloped in a chair with a back. They just sit on those little black stools and bounce, or some of them will spin on the stool. So I have to really model and reinforce that um, if you are not going to sit on the stool properly, then you're going to have to sit on one of the blue classroom chairs. And so they've kind of turned into using the stools as a reward for on-task behavior. Like you finished all your work, now it's independent work time. Like you finished your small group work, so now for your independent time, you can choose to sit on a stool if you want, but remember how we were supposed to sit on the stool. And then some teachers said that they actually had students earn flexible seating for good, for managing themselves in an organized fashion. So if they keep their papers and their materials organized, they can earn tickets or whatever to then earn a flexible seat. They don't earn tickets for flexible seating for being kind or the other like classroom expectations that you might reward for on target behavior. She stressed twice to eliminate clutter, and I wrote ugh next to that because I like my piles. And I teach 6 different grade levels some years. So I have a lot of stuff and stuff gets cluttered and I need to work on that. So that will be a growth area for me to reduce my clutter and my piles. Then she went on to talk about how to organize small group instruction areas and learning stations or like centers that kids might rotate between. And I only do small group instruction. I only do small group instruction. So basically, my teacher table is my small group instruction area, and I don't have a teacher desk to manage or organize. And then I don't use learning stations because I typically don't have enough students to do station work. The only station work I might do is if I have a student finish early at the small group table, I might have them go to their desk to complete an activity, or I might have an activity up on the whiteboard that they could do independently while I finish with other students, but I don't have like station rotations like what a classroom teacher might have. So I think that about covers it. I learned a lot about classroom organization. I also need to go back through these notes and consider as a teacher of the deaf, um, how classroom organization can impact my students' ability to receive and express information both auditorily if they use spoken language or visually if they use American Sign Language to communicate without auditory access. I can also use these tips to, um, as I chat with homeroom teachers about preferential seating, which is an accommodation that all of my students have. So just making sure, just counseling or coaching on this is your classroom layout. So let's discuss where the student seat should be to be most accessible for instruction of both seeing you, the content you're trying to present, and if they have an interpreter, they can see the interpreter. Um, so I'm really excited. Let me know, what are your thoughts about all of this? Either as a classroom teacher, a special ed teacher, or a teacher of the deaf. What are your thoughts about classroom organization? Like, what do you think are the biggest things that you consider when you set up your classroom? If you're a special ed teacher, what are some things that you go over with, um, or that you discuss with homeroom teachers or special area teachers as you consider classroom layout for students with disabilities? Because there's just a whole myriad of things to consider. For students who are OHI who might have ADHD or a physical impairment or cognitive impairment or sensory issues, anxiety, hearing loss, decreased vision. Like, what are some of the things that you all consider um, during classroom layout time and just organizing your classroom? So I'd love to hear it because, as you can tell, I am growing in this area and I would love to hear what your thoughts and ideas are on this topic. So I hope you all have an amazing day. I'm going to continue just crossing off things on my to-do list. And I have 7 days before I head back to school for work officially. So thanks for taking a morsel of your time with me today, and I hope you have an amazing day.